Let me just go back and verify. All right, here we go. Perfect. Welcome. This is the His Advocates Q&A. I want to say thank you so much for coming on. It's October the 27th, just a few days before Satan's biggest holiday of the year. No, I don't like celebrating Halloween. If y'all knew what happened on that day, and everybody wants to break it down like all these holidays are godly, holy, or like Halloween is not a satanic holiday. You know, what's funny is people, it's like churches, they'll do like a harvest festival on the same day. And there's people like Christians that be, oh, you're still celebrating Halloween. You're still giving them treats. You're still this, that, and the other. And I'm like, no, you're pulling kids off the street in a controlled environment and giving them sound doctrine and word. It's totally the opposite of what people have a tendency to believe. And it's like the same thing with Christmas. And I know there's a ton of hardcore guys out there about Christmas. God, Christmas was created and it's not what you think. It was about the devil and about this, that, and whatever. And um I know for a fact nobody knows the true day. I know people want to say it's September the 11th of when Christ was born, but I know for a fact that God does not mind me praying and worshiping every day of the week. God does not mind me celebrating his birthday on what would be considered a satanic day where I honor him and honor his birth and honor his life and honor his death. God would not mind that. I know. I know. I don't think he's sitting there going, all because you've got a Christmas tree up and and people will pull the reference of the trees down where as the heathens did with stencils hanging from their trees, not understanding the context of the verse, not understanding the context of why it was said, and then taking it as law for 8 billion people. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. And there's also people that say God doesn't hate people, he hates their sin. According to scripture, you're wrong. And I think when you start to look at every element of King James and what the conversion of the Hebrew, the Greek, and the Aramaic into a proper English, when you take a look at that and you start to understand the actual context of what was being said at that time, what was the actual meaning, you would be blown away by what Christ or by the writers actually meant or God's intent actually was through the scripture. And I'm going to be talking about those types of things for people as we go because I think it's super important that we understand we're not supposed to be weak sauce individuals. We're not supposed to cowtail. We're not supposed to submit ourselves to every form of government. Second Peter 2:13, Romans 13. We're not supposed to follow a corporation, not understanding, critically in law what we have here in this nation. We are the government. They are to serve us. They were designed for only one purpose, to restrain themselves from interrupting our God-given unalienable rights called self-governance. And I hear churches to be a good Christian, you must pay your taxes. I hear churches to be a good Christian, you must be obedient to your government. I hear Christian pastors saying all the things that are opposite of the truth for our nation and for our people, and teaching our people to submit their money, their finances, their time to an unholy, ungodly form of structure that we really need to start changing the element of what God was actually saying and the intent for the people. And I think that's going to be a major push for me. And I'm going to get a lot of pushback from pastors because they have been saying one thing for a long time. I'm okay with that. I don't have any problem with that. I have pastors tell me, what do you call what are you, a tax protester? What are you um, and what are you, a sovereign citizen? I'm like, oh, where did you learn that? Fox News? I mean, where did you learn that one? Um, and the reality is, I would rather contest taxes, even though I'm not a tax protester. As a matter of fact, a state citizen is not required to pay taxes according to the Supreme Court. Okay, because I'm a creditor, you're a debtor. Number two, you're not supposed to be a debtor. Number three, you're not supposed to be a pledge against any other man. Number four, you're not supposed to be the surety for any debt or the collateral for any debt, biblically, but you are, and you're training your people to be. And then when you take a look at taxes and you take a look at what they're being spent on, number four, you're supporting abortion, you're supporting death, you're supporting the killing of innocents all over this world, you're supporting narcotics, you're supporting kidnapping, you're supporting child prostitution, and I can go on and on. Not me. Okay. Why does it say, "Come out of her, my people"? Because you will be judged for supporting that and for participating and teaching your people to support that rather than to turn towards Jesus, turn towards God, and understand that there's a better way. And by the way, tithing is not what most every church represents. And not to get into an argument with every church, but um, they always bring forward the only scripture they bring forward in the Old Testament is tithing. That's the mandate. Sorry, pastors. I mean, just hear me out. Dump your nice cars. Dump your, if you're asking for money from people from the congregation, dump your nice car, go get a job, do the pastor thing on a part-time basis, and let the money flow. And trust me, don't try to make it a big building. Don't try to make it all those things. Just educate people on what the cross means. But when it comes to tithing, that Old Testament scripture was meant, and I'm saying this respectfully, it was 2 million people at the time, 400,000 of which, 400,000, no, 200,000 of which was Levites, 10%, 12% roughly. Levites, the house of God, God's way of people to use to help govern all of Israel, to take care of the elderly, to take care of the poor, to take care of the homeless, to take care of the children, to be fed. That's what the portion of the first fruits, meaning you were growing, you were tithing your first fruits on that harvest, not on a paycheck, on a harvest. And you were giving it to the Levites, and the Levites were being supported by that. And the Levites were tending to the 1,800 or 1.8 million other Israelites. And they were bringing in the elderly, they were bringing in the widows, they were bringing in the homeless, they were bringing in the hungry, and they were feeding them and sheltering them and taking care of them with that money. And what I see churches today doing are saying it's to be of your gross amount 10%, and this is how you are blessed, and this is it comes to a rate of return of tenfold. And I've seen pastors putting Bentleys on the stage, and I'm not talking about every pastor out there, but tithing is real, but it's not what you think. It's not what's being predominantly presented today. It's a problem that I have with the churches. It's my own problem, and if I'm wrong, have a pastor confront me and tell me where I'm wrong. Because what pastors are doing predominantly is making people, and I saw one the other day. Again, this is not every pastor, but I saw one the other day scold a black woman in front of her child, pledging $1,000 plus pledging $230. And he said, "Excuse me?" He said, "I told you bring 1,000 plus 1,000. What'd you do?" She said, "Well, I brought what I had, 1,000 plus 230." He said, "Well, you didn't do what I asked you to do." Oh my God. Yeah. I wanted to let the guy up. I was pretty upset. Pastors, stop calling for people to pay out of obligation a tenth of their gross for your church, for your building, for your salary, for your cars, for your. Stop it. Teach them tithing properly. And don't use the old lady in two mites. Stop it. I get it. It's important to run a church, but you make people feel like they're falling into a sinful place when it has nothing to do with a modern day church. The rules to which you were operating, that 10% tithe, were completely different back then. And by the way, you were not paying the salaries of 200,000 people or of 10% of your church to be supported with those tithes. It's more like four, five, six, 10 people. I get it. You have ministry outreaches, you have all these things, you have all these things you're trying to do. I want to expand the kingdom of God as much as you do. You will probably benefit more tithing wise if you taught it properly and not went after the gross percent of 10% of every single person in your church. Because back in the day when they were requiring the first fruits, 10% of the first fruits, they took care of 200,000 people, the Levites, with it and beyond, all the widows, all the orphans, all the elderly. They ran the entirety of the government and they operated as the government for the people. So if you're taking your entire community of people around you in your neighborhood and you're covering 10% of all those people coming to your church and then beyond, and you're helping the homeless and you're not giving them a pamphlet to call the city, and you're helping the children in your local area and you're not giving them a pamphlet to call Orange Crest or Orangewood or whatever for child help. That's the problem with our church today. Is we're not operating like the Old Testament was, but we're still requiring the 10% gross. So there's just a few little things that we need to tweak and watch what God does. Watch what he does. I mean, I think the Republic. Just went to the Republican event this last weekend again, not this past weekend, the one before. And I told you guys I was being attacked for like a couple months. And the second I stood up, it left. And it wasn't about a fear of standing up and talking to people. It was about what I had to accomplish for God to tell people to understand the value of state citizenship. Um, I just had a conversation with a guy, major influencer, potentially doing a podcast with him, wants me to fly out to Florida, this, that, and the other. And I broke down what I did. And he's like, man, I'm sure happy you told me what you did because I'm an extreme skeptic and I probably would have stopped the interview midstream. I said, that's fine. I said, I get it. I said, but the reality is the everything I'm doing. And I said to you, I can fact find it in the law for you. And I said, secondly, I wrote the book on it basically, and I'd be more than happy to share it with you. But the reality is, um, the predominant portion of the way that you're probably teaching people to do their deeds and do their stuff is and can be changed. And those are the guys I want to go after. I want to reclaim deeds in the foundation name, which is titled to God. And I want to and people say that doesn't make any difference. He's going to come. He's already reclaimed the entirety of the earth. If it doesn't make any difference, why did the devil spend so much time to take the title of your children from you, take the title of your cars from you, take the title of your homes from you. And now he's working on taking the title of your DNA from you. Why is it not important if the devil has worked or the structures that are out there have worked to change what lawful title is on your home, your cars, your children, on a business, on all of these things? If it's not important, why are they working so hard to make Supreme Court rulings showing that it is important to them? It's because they can get lawful authority over you in the time of your need. There's coming a point where they are going to, like, they made a blanket ruling that they can take any property, any land at any time they want for the use and disposal of the military. No, they can't lawfully, legally. There are people out there that I have watched that have held the test of time against city and structures and government because they structurally, lawfully took care of their land and put it in a patent, put it into a allodial title. And I've watched over a history of time that Disneyland couldn't take this one immigrant farmers, Japanese farmers' land right down the street in a major. It's still there, still open, still being harvested for whatever, whoever the family is they're waiting. I have no idea what they're waiting for. obviously the big offer, but it's still there because there's no lawful authority. Don't you think that taught Disney everything he needed to know to go and do Disney World in Florida? Disney World, if you guys don't believe what I teach, then tell me why Disney World is sovereign. Tell me. Well, because they got some special deal? You're right, they did. They titled their land properly. Structure, everything done. Don't pay property taxes. Don't pay income taxes. Don't pay anything at Disney World. Did you know that? Not a myth, not a Kelbyism, a fact, Jack. Why is it so important? Because if they can do it, we can do it. If Costco can stay open during a pandemic, Kelby can stay open during a pandemic. It's just you don't want to put yourself up against the machine. You don't want to fight for your rights. It was like talking to that guy from the real estate thing. He's like, man, I'm really skeptic. I'm glad you told me. And God, I don't think I would have let you finish the conversation with me. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get it. But you're either a king or a servant. I don't know what you think you are, but I'm a king. I said it nicely. And I said, what I've done is allow me to build a lawful castle and moat and alligators, and you ain't got crap. And I'm no offense. I go, I've been doing this a long time. And unfortunately, people don't know any better. They just think some people are privileged. Costco's privileged. They get to stay open during the pandemic. No, there's nothing special about Costco. They didn't get the name drawn out of a hat. Oh, you got special permission from the city to stay open, but you need to stay closed, and we're going to use law enforcement to keep you closed. I watched those battles during COVID, and every single person that forced to stay open, and every single person that they came after, they're all getting settlements now. The ones that got closed by cops, they're all getting settlements if they fought and they stayed open. And they were forced closed. They got their locks changed on them. Like the city has control. Of course, there's a color of law control, but the reality is that was so wrong that I want to change my locks back. My rent's current. I'm not closing. We're going to turn it into a PMA. People can make their own choices. But then people fail for a lack of knowledge, like the Amish farmer who got sued, the big Amish farmer, for making meat that was good for you. I looked at, I created a video on it in the past. I looked at it all. I'm like, dude, your house is registered in both of your names. You registered your PMA with the Secretary of State, complete jurisdiction. You got to do what they say you got to do. If you want to build a moat, you got to build up a lawful moat. Again, if none of what I'm saying matters, properly affecting a good deed on your home, getting yourself recognized as a state citizen, if at all by force, which is what we do. Recontracting these job positions, DMV, IRS, SSA, voters, so that you make sure they understand you're no longer contracted, but you're on the driver's license, accepting the ability to hold the license in play for the registered organization, canceling your responsibility in it as the beneficial interest over the trust. Whoa, Kelby, that was too much for me to understand. These are all trust, guys. Single sided. They're the grantor. You're the trustee, liably. They're the beneficiary. Read the back. Administrative processes allow for you to lawfully correct what you've done wrong on a previous done application. No, they don't. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. If I come at you with a letter and an offer to cure, a secondary letter, offer to cure, and um, and then a third letter with a notice of default because you didn't cure with agree to the terms or rebut the presumption and agree to the terms or and I give you a period of time between each letter. The third letter can be what's called a default, and in that default it makes it what's called a court of record, and I can use that court of record in the future showing that I lawfully went through a process to effect a new record, by acquiescence, a new contract, if you will, with the Department of Motor Vehicles, showing I'm no longer the liability, showing them I've removed my signature from the application, showing them because you're not changing law enforcement's idea of what is an American, and you're making this unfortunate statement that all people are under the federal government instead of saying there are some people known as state citizens that we have to serve. They are the government. We're actually, supposed to serve them in the highest capacity possible. And that there really isn't a need to drive with a driver's license. Now, I know a lot of people just go, oh my God, Kelby, what are you doing? Do you know what would happen if everybody drove without a driver's license? There may be a little bit of chaos, but let's turn it away from a profit center for a corporation and let's turn it into real. Like if you're going to make a person need a license to drive, let's not make it so that there's an obligation of jail in the event of X, X, and X. Let's just teach them. There is a middle ground that's better than this commercial application, is my point. There's a better ground than you or your children going to jail for 100 days because they drove on a suspended driver's license. There's a better point because it's coming to that point, guys, to where you're going to have robots enforcing, AI enforcing, and everything will be automated to the point where you have cameras in your house. And the only place that you'll lawfully be able to do anything in the private is the bathroom. And that's where you're going to have to sip on your booze, smoke your cigarettes, have a cussing round with your family, because that'll be the only place you won't get a ticket or fined for saying those things in your own home. Unless we come together, unless we come back. And this is where it's going to get interesting. I see, yeah, the Republic is slow in banding together. I'm really worried about this administration. I don't think the administration is what you guys think. I think there's a lot of things that you need to ask yourself a question on. Why does the Jerusalem Post listen? Why does the Jerusalem Post call Trump their Messiah? Why did 100 plus rabbis get together and give him a special trophy claiming him to be the Messiah? Their Messiah. Why did Saudi Arabia claim him as king? Remember his hand on the glowing globe? Remember he got the king's sword right in front of the king? Remember those things? Those are real statements. Why is he able to do what he's doing? And everybody's behind him. Well, because he supposedly got shot in the ear and he got persecuted and he was jailed and he was fined and he lost this and lost that, had to pay this, had to pay that. And they made this big right left argument. And yeah, I'm not down for the left. I am for sure down for conservative. But you know what? Trump is promoting things that I don't agree with, like vaccines. RFK is promoting things I don't agree with. Like every American will have a wearable by 2026, 3 months away from now. A wearable, a digital ID, a wearable, yes. Where you're going to house your passport, where you're going to put your credit cards, where you're going to have, without it, you don't buy or sell, soon to be an actual chip or mark. It's going to come so rapidly, so fast. And we're all sitting there applauding, not realizing what's coming. And they're talking about some crazy stuff coming right now, guys. Some crazy stuff. Anyway, let's get into the Q&A. I want to get off and rest tonight as fast as possible. Um, Hawkeye, to answer your question about USPS and whether you're able to receive something in the foundation name, in care of the foundation name with your all caps name on it. Um, I'm going to say this as fast as I can, but really be clear for you because um, the office of the person is probably the most important position utilized on a indictment or warrant. So again, I've looked at warrants and indictments, reverse engineered them, created the living in the private program. So when I talk about this stuff, it's not because there is a fear of a state citizen becoming indicted. There are people that are going through issues with IRS. There's people that have real valid worries in the back of their mind about being indicted or about getting a warrant served upon them. Why? I don't know. There are people that come to us all the time that are criminals, and we push a large portion of them away that are ones that have done harm to other people. But people that haven't done harm to other people, we help. And this is important for people to understand because with a warrant or an indictment, the only way subject matter jurisdiction is granted is if they see you or can prove that you're holding an office. What do I mean by holding an office? Let's read you a warrant right out of the back of my mind. Officers writing down an affidavit. I saw such and such person at such and such address checking personal mail. Second statement. I went to the United States Post Office, such and such named regional postmaster general said such and such person receives mail at such and such mailbox. How does that grant jurisdiction? I don't know. Then I went to the DMV. Such and such person has two motor vehicles registered in their name and at that address. That three statements granted subject matter jurisdiction over the state, over the individual. So you analyze those statements and you read an indictment, you read a warrant, and you analyze the statements, and here's what it wraps around. You're holding a job position. They own the birth certificate. They own the corporation. They own that address. I know you say you own your house. You really don't unless you've done a deed the way that we taught you. They still own the address. Okay, if it with the zip code, that's in the public, that's territory. So that's theirs. You're never going to own that address. You can own the land of where that address is near, but point being, if you're getting mail in Hawkeye's name at any address to where they can show proof of that, then that is strike one of a threefold cord requirement by the state to prove subject matter jurisdiction. Strike two would be the regional postmaster looking up, showing a history of you doing it. Strike three would be having two motor vehicles registered in the birth certificate name, proving you're using the name that they own. It's their office. You're holding the office. Three strikes, you're out. In personam, subject matter jurisdiction granted. The point I'm trying to make is super important. And this is the hardest part about the living in the private is to reprogram them to only receive mail in the foundation name. Your creditors, your vendors, everybody only send me mail in the foundation name. And some people just have a problem with it. Create a fake name, guys. Just say, look, my cousin Billy Bob Thornton, Billy Bob Smith is going to be the name on this from here on. Give him Billy Bob Smith, Billy Bob Hawkeye, Hawkeye Bob Billy, whatever name you want. Get your name off of it. If they're going to put the name on it, put a fake name. And then the foundation, which is the owner of the account. So figure out how to get your name off and the foundation only or the foundation in a fake name to receive personal mail at the P.O. box or at the UPS store. If it were me, I would never receive mail at the house, USPS mail. I do, but I don't receive it ever in my name, ever. And I still get uh I still get deliveries from companies into foundation names to where I sleep. I get them at multiple PO boxes. I have three UPS store boxes, and for different things. So the goal is to remove their ability to show that you're holding an office. And you will not be holding an office if nobody is receiving any mail. And if you take your assets and you put them in the name of the foundation. So if your cars, which is why we do the cars, if your cars are pledged over to the foundation, they don't have jurisdiction over a foundation, and they can't say that you have two motor vehicles registered to the name that they own. thus proving you're holding an office. So literally go read a warrant or indictment and then look through that with the lens that I just taught you, and your mind will explode of joy. It's that simple. And the only reason why I was able to reverse engineer is because I took it from a different lens perspective of, well, what to not do. How do I make, how, and basically it was, how do I reverse engineer a warrant or indictment? Not that I'm worried about anybody that becomes a state citizen. I'm not worried about them getting indicted. I just want to protect people. So I'm developing Kevlar. And one level of Kevlar is starting with the passport. Another level of Kevlar is the removal of the office of the person, convincing all your vendors, all the people you do business with, to send only to the foundation name or to a fake name. Like, get your name off of it and put on a fake name. And it's not hard when you're making it in the foundation name with the fake name, Billy Bob, on it. It's not hard to put that name on because you're giving them a name of a foundation with a tax ID number because you're putting the account into that name. Your mobile account, your electrical account, your gas account, your home, all of it can go in the foundation name. Now, all these people are going to mail your name care of the foundation. Get your name off of it. Just say, look, I don't receive personal mail anymore. This is going to be under the name Billy Bob Smith, and just make that for the record from now on. And that's all you got to do. And so from that point forward, Billy Bob Smith gets mail, care of the foundation name. There's no jurisdiction that could ever be said you're holding an office. You're using the name, which, as stupid as that sounds, read a warrant or an indictment. You'll see what I'm talking about through the warrant or indictment. It's the simple of the holding of the office. Okay. Next question. I'm in the process of filling out a 1583 form, the UPS mailbox service agreement, to switch from my name to the name of the foundation via notary presentment. I have two questions regarding this. Where would a person typically do a notary presentment? If not a UPS, and do I need to get a copy of the paperwork after the notary signs it for my record? Yeah, I would just take pictures of it, scan it, whatever, and let them put it off in the mail. Remember that a notary is an officer of the court, and what the notary presentment for is for the purposes of proving that you restructured the 1583 and you did it with basically process service, an officer of the court. So a notary sending something on your behalf, to answer your question, they don't like doing it. There's very few notaries out there. So you got to find a friend that's going to be willing to do it. So say, look, I just need you to put this in the mail and dump it in the mailbox. And then they're gonna be all, okay, they'll may charge you 20, $30 more. Some people don't like do it. Some people have said they don't do that. It's not lawful. It's completely lawful. And there's nothing illegal or unlawful about it. It's using them as process serve for the record so that you can come back to them in the future saying, you saw me sign this, you put it into the mail. Yes, yes, yes. And that way, basically the UPS store is simply going to put that into your file folder as you're changing a record of information of how you're doing business with the UPS store. The other way to do it is simply go into the UPS store, fill out whatever new agreement they want, and sign in cursive non-assumptive. That's the only other way to get this done with no contract. Sign in cursive non-assumptive. And they don't know where that comes from. Those are the only two ways really to get it done properly. Also, the mailbox service agreement is altered in some way. The one that you have provided me on the portal, I am asking because it appears to be outdated. It might be. There is a more current one at the UPS website. If I use the outdated one, will it be rejected? It could be. Again, the mailbox service agreement isn't as important as the 1583. The 1583 is the contract with the government. The mailbox service agreement is the contract with the UPS store. Sign both non-assumptive and you'll be safe. Should I use the current one from the, yeah, use that. Sign it non-assumptive. Okay, proper tithing is a spiritual sacrifice, one of the essential components of being submissive, being submission of our provision received as God. It's coming from God, not the proxies or worldly mechanisms that they seem to be coming from. Worship the creator, not the creation. If the sacrifice is not offered from a pure heart, God not only does not want it, but he will not accept it. So there's no point in giving an unworthy tithe anyways, since it won't be received. Thank you, John. Also, who in their right mind would tithe out of their gross? The gross figure means that the money is not yours. Your tithing percentage based else's, you're tithing a percentage based else's money received, LMAO. You can't just make this stuff up. Thank you, John. You're tithing based on someone else's money received. Correct. All right, next question. The passport card that I received over a year ago came, and by the way, I think every person with means needs to tithe, and we can always discuss the biblical tithing. Um, I just have a problem with, and hear me out, hear my heart out. Churches using Old Testament scripture that pertained to Israel at the time where Israel was the government for the entirety of 2 million people. And they didn't refuse people and send them off to the state. And they took care of 200,000 people, which was 1/10 or 1/12 of the entirety of the 2 million. So they're using the 10% of the first fruits received from the 90%, the other 11 tribes, to give to the Levites to operate the government for Israel. Churches are not operating as a government for the entirety of their people. Churches are not bringing on or covering or feeding 10% of the body of their church. Churches, by and large, are not feeding the community, helping the widows in their community at large, sheltering them, giving them provision, giving them whatever, rent, whatever, helping them. And it's a much different model of a church today than it is back then. And I'm just saying that portion. So let's use the models taught in the Word that are not directly related to an Old Testament scripture that had nothing to do with modern day churches. That's all I'm saying. Next question. A passport card that I received over a year ago came out so blurry where other sources that I tried to do a verification ID was not accepted. It seems they did it on purpose so that I would have to use my driver's license. I don't know what you're talking about, Cameron. Send me a picture of it. Are you aware of any issues with foundations investing currencies through third-party corporate investment vehicles, including offshore corporations other than US and receiving returns? No, there's no issues with that. And they can receive 1099 all day long. They don't have to file a return. John, you're good. And whenever I use my driver's license to open up a stock brokerage account as Robinhood, I get denied because they don't accept my current PO box address. That is a problem. You just got to put your current address on there. And most of the time I use a UPS store box because it looks like an apartment address and they don't have the tool sets like banks do on the spot to verify whether or not that's an apartment or a UPS store. So you might want to try that way and get an actual UPS store on your driver's license. Looking on, oh, thank you. Time, sure, kind of not in currency, a tenth of the increase from the land produced. Yep. Biblical times ties Nether went to a legal entity. They supported a living priestly community operating under divine law, not the jurisdiction of the state. That's what I'm talking about. First Corinthians says spreading the gospel is the reward. We shouldn't expect payment for sharing the good news. Yeah, that's rough. And it's like pastors, if you're going to be a pastor and you're going to be receiving tithes or receiving donations, and you're not properly stating why you can receive donations or tithes and you're not properly using it, I would be operating in fear. I think they're important for churches. And I just think, again, that's between the pastor and God. And I think that churches that are truly under God need to thrive and they need money to do what they're doing. And so I think quite honestly, the people that do have and the people that have abundance, should be giving way more than 10% to the church and getting behind that church. But that church is by an operation in law. Uh, God's church, the people, the equivalent of the Levites were the government at the time. And so think about who your church should be like in a modern day world like today. If we were going to make the equivalent of the biblical Levites, you would be tithing to the republic, like literally. Instead of 10% towards the church, you'd be tithing to the republic. But that republic would be taking care of 10% of all the people that it were over from a standpoint of shelter, food, and then going after and taking care of the widows and the elderly. But now listen, that's a real hard thing to do. Current churches today should be operating in republic, and unfortunately, they're teaching people how to operate in de facto corporate. They're teaching people how to be a good U.S. citizen. They're teaching people um, that their 501(c)(3) is the proper way to do it because that's the way the government told them to do it. And they're teaching people to make payments to the government. And unfortunately, their money is grossly misspent. And anyway, I don't want to get on that topic too much. I just think that it's a super important thing that people get off the guilt. If you have, give abundantly, but to a good church, a church that loves Jesus, and a church where the pastor is not getting rich, personally rich, off of Jesus. I just saw a pastor the other day with a Bentley on the stage. Y'all see this one? He's he's got a ton of necklaces and a great suit, and he's like living the life, and he's got a gold Bentley behind him, and he said, "This Bentley belongs to you." And somebody yells out of the audience, "Can I drive it?" He's all, "Oh, hell no. Jesus said you can't drive it." I fell out of my chair laughing all that way. He's like, "Oh, hell no. You can't drive it. Jesus said to me, nobody can drive it but me." You know, I'm like, oh my God, what? And then Kenneth Copeland gets up and he starts talking about how he's got a member that wants to pray for him, and he wants to give him a uh I think he said a Bentley Breitling or something, and he said that would be my 37th one, or something like that. And I'm like, Kenneth Copeland has 37 Breitlings. How many Rolexes? How many? You know what I mean? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh. But somebody was giving him, in fact, their Bentley car so that he would pray them out of their cancer. But he used it as a platform for people to understand what other people were giving him. Like he has some magical words to take him out of their cancer. The dude died after giving him the Bentley. And it's just wrong. Look, I love what I do. I don't love confronting people on things. I really don't. But I think that there's coming an account, and the only way that we can help Christians, people come out of her is if they truly understand the truth. And if your pastor's saying one and I'm saying another thing about what her is, or about what we have here as a sovereignty in our nation, or about you needing to be a good citizen to be a good Christian, meaning you have to pay your taxes. I need to set that record straight, and I need to stand against many of those principles because there is coming a point to which pastors will be held account for what they're saying to their people. And I know they have good hearts largely. There's a lot of pastors I know that have good hearts, but there's a lot of them I know that are compromised, even in the Calvary movement. I know there's compromised pastors. I know there's pastors that do things for certain reasons. And I know there's pride there. And I know there's arrogance there. And I know there's divisions there in their own churches and division amongst the Calvary church. And I see it. And it's a sad thing because, man, if you ain't got anything, as a pastor, we should just be trying to lead the people to the cross. That's it. That's it. It's not about getting rich. It's not about, don't get me wrong, a church can have a lot of money to do a lot of things. but we have to evaluate, you know, what they're saying in order to receive it. And I just want churches to be truthful with what was intended in the word. That's all I care about. It's not to put pastors down, but there is coming a point where pastors, and I don't know why the number I've had a number in the back of my head. There's going to be 7,000 pastors I'm going to talk to. Somebody said that a long time ago, and I have had it in the back of my head for 15 years. Um, but there's coming a time where pastors are going to have to make the choice of what they've been teaching. And guys, it's so far gone. What what is being taught is so far gone of where the truth is. Like I know a lot of pastors who are now state citizens using humanitarian foundations to run their body through. Applaud them. And they're not grinding their people. They're still receiving a ton of tithes, but it's not grinding the people on the principles of the 10% rule. Give of your heart, whatever. There is coming a time, though, where people are going to be like, what is her? Come out of her, my people. Because they're teaching this pre trib rapture. They're teaching these things that I don't believe necessarily are true. I'm not saying rapture doesn't exist. I just think that you're going to see a different outcome. And if it doesn't happen the way that your church says, what's going to happen is a disappointment in God and a falling away. And I don't want that. God is never in the word ever not let people go through the hardship first so they'll have the maximum harvest. He's never done that. And I get it. We all want to be up in heaven getting served by Jesus for 7 years. What a party. To me, that's the equivalent of 70 virgins for the Muslim faith. It's a cop out because there's very few scriptures to support that unequivocally. And it was something that was brought up by a Mason in the late 1800s. And it could very well I get it why you say what you say. I get it. But there also could be a mid trib. There also could be a late trib. There also could be a post trib. There also could be a no trib. There are things that you have to think about that one scripture people are grabbing onto and using for the entirety of all 8 billion people and however many Christians. I think that we need to slow down and understand that the devil has a deception so large on the horizon, so large that when your faith comes to an end because you're not up in heaven feasting with Jesus, when your faith comes to an end and you turn away, I don't want that. I don't want you to turn away. That's when you get on your knees. And that's when you buckle down. And that's when life becomes really prevalent. Um, what if you get a jury summons? I don't even pay attention. I have a couple letters. Post a ticket on HISAdvocates.org. We'll give you some paperwork. Um, can one get their home in the foundation all day long without state citizenship all day long? All day long. You are the man. Thank you. That's quite nice of you. Equity examines the intent, fairness, and consequences behind the act and always allows correction when the form fails, but the intent was pure. Yeah. And that goes for a lot of pastors too. And I think that we have been lied to so much, not only by our government, but by our previous pastors. And I don't think previous pastors are intentionally lying, many of them. I think many of them are just going down the road of 501(c)(3), going down the road of all um, uh, the misinformed doctrine, misinformed law, not understanding state citizenship, not understanding tax free, not understanding that they don't have to be a U.S. citizen. And I think once we start getting our mind wrapped around all those things, it becomes a lot better. Um, Hold on, David. I got to get to your questions. Here we go. I remember correctly in the recent Q&As, a member said, do the step one and submit the letter notifying the county of the foundation's property tax immune status. And you agreed and said HISadvocates has a template letter to accomplish that. Is such letter available that I could ask Alex to forward? Yeah, we got something for you. Posted on your ticket. Second question, if as an LPP member, I already corrected and accepted your deeds, meaning your deeds, with your deeds, got it. And yet you do not take the final steps of taking your properties out of the county registration. That's fine. If you're using our deeds, you're in a foundation name, meets and bounds with a fee simple absolute, you're golden. You're just paying taxes. And so the next natural step would be to try to remove your property from the county or get the exemptions forms filled out and without recontracting with them. So those exemption forms are tricky. Would it be a roadblock for the county ever confiscating your property as their own? No. To have a lien in place of one foundation's holding no properties onto the other two foundations holding the properties? No. How are they going to get a lien in place on one foundation? No liens, no judgments, can't be sued. No way. Number three, when paying your property taxes, would it be beneficial to submit and record under miscellaneous at the courthouse a letter recording your notice of property status as a foundation asset being tax immune. So, along with qualified signature using TDC as a part of your qualified signature, threat, duress, coercion, have it notarized as well as filed under miscellaneous at the recorder's office. Let's do this. I want to briefly address it, but I think I need to really go down the road of explaining through, and I've done it a few times. I just can't point to you quickly enough. Um, the county does not recognize your foundation as a tax or nonprofit, and it only is going to recognize your foundation as tax exempt if you show that it is tax exempt. So you got to do a notice letter to the county in the form of a letter certified that your property is owned by a humanitarian foundation and you would like it pulled off the tax rolls. If it were me, I'd do that. I'd do a fault and I'd do a default. They're going to respond and say you must fill out this form and respond with, you're not tax exempt. We only do people that have a church or a building. You're not 501c3. There's all these excuses. So the what ifs that you do from that point are so immense and so, left or right direction, depending on how they respond, that ultimately there is an element of where you have to bring a suit forward and where they will cave. There are people um, in this book that wrote a recommendation on HISAdvocates. I don't want to say his name in the public every time, but he was paying $42,000 a year in property taxes, to which he paid zero now. And that's super important for you guys to understand. It's the gentleman that's the third recommendation for HISAdvocates, for the third, whatever you call it, for HISAdvocates. And it's important because he's an NFL Hall of Fame retired Green Bay Packer, and he walked through the entirety of the process, but he had help of a person who knew how to write a case, and he brought the case forward, and they settled. And they did all the same excuses with him. You're not a church. You're not this. You're not that. Didn't matter. He's tax exempt. Why are you taxing him? But they didn't want to set a case precedent, so they canceled out the case and canceled out or he canceled out the case and they canceled out the taxes. So I'm telling you, there's so many different variables. I can't answer your question with absolute until you see which direction it's coming from. This is why we don't offer this as a product. But I'm telling you right now, if they do this for a 501c3, they have to do this for a tax exempt foundation. They have to. They don't want to because it's the 501c3 is owned and controlled by the state. The foundation is owned by Jesus or Yeshua, and controlled by nobody except the man that's here representing it while he's here on the earth. I know that sounds funny, but that's just a fact. Um, so I think I just want to maybe go down the road of asking people that are doing consults for this type of service to allow for their consults to be in the public, to offer it to people in the future for free so that people can get their mind wrapped around. Secondly, maybe create a standard operating procedure of what to do. And it's not easy because there's so many variables in how they're going to respond. Um, but you're getting the point. It's one of two things. Either you're going to sell the house. Listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. Either you're going to sell the house to a new foundation, close the tax account, and you're going to create a counter deed in that transaction. The counter deed is going to be held privately by the new foundation, never registered. We have a ton of people in this limbo land right now. Ton of people. Nobody's knows what to do with this because this foundation closes the account, says, I am no longer the owner of the account. They say, give us a copy of the deed. There's no requirement for anybody to give them the new deed. You get it? So, what happens when nobody claims to being the new owner and has no lawful obligation as a broker? I'm telling you this in law. There's no lawful obligation for them to submit the counter deed and go read the definition of counter deed, and which I'll do for you right now. Give me a second to find it. This is Black's Law. Anybody can find it. It's either under deeds or it's under counter. But give me just a second to find this. My apologies about doing it slowly. I was not prepared. But you will surely appreciate this. Counter deed. A secret deed executed either before a notary or under private seal. Understand, go look up what private seal is. That voids, listen, invalidates or alters a public deed. So you can keep a private side deed that trumps any public side recorded deed. And that means a deed that is not held in the public. Now, it doesn't mean that there is a vacated public deed, but now if you do a double whammy where you close the tax account, say you sell it, you hold a counter deed in place, that actually trumps anything that's recorded or not recorded. And that's where we have a lot of people. So that's number one. Or number two, you get them to accept your tax exempt status as a public foundation or private foundation from the public side recorded record of the house being in the county. Those are the only two options, and we don't have a service because we're not attorneys. We're not sitting there fighting every single different scenario, and it's not something that I can give any warrants or guarantees on because there's 3,000 different counties and they all have a different thought process and they all treat people differently. So it's not easy for me to get it done, but I can teach you the steps and the tools required to bring a property into the private, and I've proven it. I've proven it. And so when you go into limbo land, what happens? You're not paying taxes. How are they able to lien on something where it's not anything is recorded? They're not. They can't hold anybody accountable. Doesn't mean they're not going to knock on the door. Doesn't mean that house address is not going to get any letters. Well, if they're not going to get any letters if you don't have a mailbox, and da 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 da. And so it's like, what do? They're going to send somebody out to knock on the door. How can they do that if you have gates? I mean, I had to let somebody in from the gas company so they can check my gas because I have gates. You understand? It's the point is, I wish it was a laydown, and at some point it will become a laydown where that element, people will forever be able to live on their land in a foundation, in a structure that's private for generations. Um, why we teach trusts, uh, private family trusts, and where you're executing a beneficial payment, a division of assets, and having the children divide everything up and sell everything and divide it up, and then having a tax and capital gains moment at that time. Why? Why not teach them to keep everything in the foundation, put it in the foundation name, create a standard operating procedure in the foundation, create a trust-like environment in the foundation that holds the members of the foundation accountable, but they keep the foundation going and the foundation owns everything. That's way, way better than a private trust. Way better. Way better. So I hope that helps, but those are steps, and it would probably be a consultation that you would need to, if you had anything further, but take initial action, see the responses, and let's help you from that point. Question over in YouTubeville. My car is registered in the foundation name, Miami. I recently received a photo ticket for running a yellow light. I want to challenge jurisdiction. Who would you recommend? Reach out. We have a name and number for you. He charges, but he'll give you an hour of time and some documents. And those tickets are so easy to beat. Can a U.S. citizen be living in the private program? I don't understand the question. Can a none U.S. citizen be? They can do everything except the passport. Yeah, 100%. They just don't have the passport, but they can correct the record. And there's a lot of things and elements of being in the private that they can do. But we recommend all the time people to become a U.S. citizen first, and then we immediately move them over as a naturalized person into becoming a state citizen. Anyway, that's it. We got a bunch of people over in YouTubeville. Thank you guys for showing up. I'm gonna call it a day. I have forgotten my water. I'm really thirsty. But I appreciate you guys coming on. I appreciate your time. And if I get a bunch of questions, I'll see you Thursday at 4 p.m. If not, I'll see you next Monday at 4 p.m. God bless you. Have a great week. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., the meeting with listen, the VIP members, I got to postpone because I got a podcast that somebody put onto my calendar without my permission. So I'm thinking about doing our VIP at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning versus the normal 9 a.m. Um, I will know tonight. I'm going to send off an email. I just don't know if I want to work 12 hours tomorrow. So God bless you guys. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for supporting HISadvocates. And I hope you understand my heart. I'm not trying to come against churches at all. I just think some of them make it real hard on people, and we need to help people and help people understand how to invest and get them out of the structural system. But at the same time, where there's a lot happening right now. There's a reason why this government is shut down. There's a reason why gold is going through the roof. Gold dropped a couple $100 today alone, down to 4,145 from 4,400 bucks high earlier today, 4,370 bucks, whatever it was. Um, but there's a lot of stuff happening. If you haven't bought XRP, go get your XRP. I'm telling you, go get it. I think November's is the big switch, and I don't think I know. I'm really looking forward to the Treasury coming forth, all the things that Ripple is doing, and you watch. We're going to be able to utilize this for the glory of God in a lot of different respects. I'm very much looking forward. Uh, if they're a permanent resident alien, they still can become a U.S. citizen. We can help them with many elements of being private, but not the state citizenship passport. God bless. Have a great week, guys. We will potentially see you Thursday.